Welcome back, everybody. I am so excited about this episode today because we have a special guest for you. My dear friend, John Meese, is releasing a new book about sold out coaching. And I thought, what better way to wrap up the series that we have just done talking about the process of transitioning from one-to-one to a group coaching? And we needed the expert on. So, John, can you tell us in like 30 seconds or less who you are, what you do, and why people need to be in your orbit?
Sure, I'm happy to. But let me just start by just saying I love sold out coaching, which is the title of our group chat with you, me and Adam, because I just think it's just so genius of like, I run Sold Out Coach Club, you run I Love Coaching. There's just such an affinity there of like, yeah, I love sold out coaching. So that's the first thing I guess you should know about me. But then beyond that, I am an author. Some people say a best-selling author, that's subjective.
You're the
But
best. I would give that to you.
thank you. Hey, Adam. And then Adam's here too now. Yeah,
Perfect timing. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
it's okay.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah. So what I do is I help you sell your smarts without losing your soul or your Saturdays. And that's really the core of what I do in my business. And that's what I'm here to help you with. Now, the reality is when you start selling your smarts, you realize pretty quickly there's courses, there's books, there's one-on-one coaching, there's consulting, there's all these things you can do. And so it took years of kind of doing that full time. I've been doing this for for 13 years, which is a long time in internet years. Before about half of that, I was focusing on courses and memberships before I realized that if you can build a sold out group coaching program at the core of your business, if you can earn at least $10,000 per month, group coaching 90 minutes per week, well, now all of a sudden you can buy back your time and you can do everything else from a place of abundance. Now you can publish a book, you can start a membership in a course without worrying about how you're going to fund your lifestyle. So that's what I do in my coaching program, but it's also the focus of my new book, as you mentioned, Sold Out Coach.
I'm so excited for this. Well, you have such a servant's heart when it comes to helping people build group coaching or coaching products and services in general. And so I think there's, like you said, great alignment between who you are and then what we do. And so that's why I thought this was the perfect marriage.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Yeah, for that. And I'm glad that you said servant hearted. I want to think I did myself a favor of like subliminally training people to call me servant hearted by calling my last book Serve to Sell. And so it's like it's like word association, but I'll take it. So thank you.
That's good. So going into, I know that the book was written in the space of not only serving, but also sharing some past challenges, right? In the coaching space.
Mhm.
And with those challenges that you then expose, what are some of the biggest challenges you've seen?
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest ones, which I'm glad you asked the question because it actually relates directly to the series you all have been running in terms of going from one-to-one to one-to-many, is that when you're selling one-to-one, you can kind of personalize what you're offering to the person in front of you. And so a lot of people, once they get good at that, they think, okay, great. Now I'll go one-to-many. I'll go create a course, a book, or coaching program. And what they find is that it's actually really, really hard to describe the promise of that. And that's where most people struggle is like, how do you actually say like, not just like, buy me on a shared call with other people and share me, like that's not a good pitch, right? And so getting clear on the promise. And actually, that's actually what got me into group coaching was I was teaching people how to sell courses, and people who had one-on-one coaching businesses trying to sell a course were kind of awful at describing the value of the course. And so they would create this massive course and it'd be tone deaf to what people actually wanted. And I was like, hey, if you want to go from one to one to many, why don't we start by going one to few? Because if you can do that, you dramatically change your ability to actually sell a promise, sell a transformation, sell a program. And then that makes it easier to sell everything else.
That's
So
so
good.
good. Thanks.
Jinx is right. But
Glad you both think that.
I think you hit the nail on the head because too often, especially in the course creation space, which is where I play a lot in terms of IP, is people have so much knowledge and so much value that they want to deliver. They don't know how to make it relate to the person who they're seeking to have buy it. And so I think that when there's that disconnect, that makes it a really difficult thing for somebody who's like, I have all of this and I want to share it. I want to serve, right? But nobody's buying. And so how would you tell somebody to go about doing that? I know you mentioned your previous book. Is that also in this context of sold out coaching as well, that serve to sell?
Well, yeah, Serve to Sell is exactly how to sell premium programs with one free coaching call. So that book's about the thing we all do. Like everybody who sells anything that's over a couple $100, there's a point where there's like a live conversation, especially when it's a new product, right? Whether sometimes you call it a discovery call or a strategy call or a clarity call, a compass call, consult, right? I was frustrated. I'm very much an instruction manual guy, and I was really frustrated there was not a really good instruction manual for those. Why I wrote Serve to Sell. So that book is how to give that call. But even before that, you got to know going into that call a little bit about what your offer is, right? If you're selling a group program, because if you meet with 5 people and you sell those 5 people into a group, congratulations, you have a group. But if you sold them 5 different things, that's going to be really complicated to deliver on, right? So we don't want to do that. So for me, it really comes down to the core of what I teach is creating what we call a 10x promise, which is a single sentence that describes the total transformation of your offer. And then the whole sales process that I teach is really built around that one thing.
That's good. That's really good. And I love that. I love both of these books, right? We've got the Serve to Sell, right? And then the sold out portion. And that's the neat part is at the start of that, understanding, and Jess and I talk about this all the time. What really is your offer? What really is your payoff? And what have you found there, John? Why is that so hard for coaches to understand?
Yeah, I think honestly, that we probably need a new term for it because it's not just the curse of knowledge, but it's something in that same family of like, well, think, like that, once you've been through therapy and you've read a couple really good like relationship books, and then you go to Thanksgiving dinner with some extended family and you start looking around and you can see all of the flaws, right? You can now see the problems. You can go, oh, you're a textbook narcissist. That's interesting. What do we do with that information? When you learn those things, what's difficult is you can't unsee it, but that doesn't mean you can just give them that advice on how to fix that problem. One of the phrases we use a lot in my program is don't sell the medicine, sell the cure, or stop selling the medicine. Because what most people are doing is they're selling the medicine. They're saying, what I learned is the path to get fit, right, is to skip breakfast, eat paleo, work out 3 times a day, like whatever. You have all this medicine, the stuff that you have people do to get change. And that's fine. People actually do need the medicine, but that should not be part of your sales process. What you're selling people is the cure, right? It's the difference between saying like, skip breakfast, eat paleo, work out 3 times a day, drink, half your body weight in water every day versus saying turn your turn your dad bod into a father figure with rock hard abs, right? Like that's a promise, right? And it's like, once they say, yes, I want that. Now we can talk about, okay, great. Here's the medicine, but we got to sell the cure. And that's one of the things I think people get stuck on. I just had a real life example of this today, actually. I was coaching a client on office hours in our group program in Sold Out Coach Club. And she came in and she told me that she had this offer. Her name's Dr. Leslie Davis. And she was really struggling because she was saying, I know I'm trying to get people to understand what I want to do is I want to help them. I want to help them speak authentically. I want them to help them be the person that they want to be. I want to make sure their actions match who they are in the inside or who they want to be, so that with that integrity and that authenticity, they can earn people's trust, they can grow their business, and like all good things. But I pointed out, I was like, okay, we have to get through layers of this to understand you're right. You can see this problem and you want to help them. You can see that people are not showing up the way that they want to be or the way that they intend to be, and that people are not trusting them or following them the same way. But we started wrestling through the layers of like, okay, but why does that matter? Why do they actually want that? And leaning into putting on our empathy hat to put ourselves in the shoes of the people that they're her target client. And we ended up there was this moment we're going deeper and deeper and deeper until she says this finally in frustration, she says, I just want to help them radiate authority. And you could feel it. Like everyone in the room, office hours was like, what? That's it. That's the offer, right? It's like teaching you how to radiate authority. And then we learned the second half of that is radiate authority without, faking it, there's another version she's working on maybe without being a jerk. Because that's the thing people are afraid of is if I radiate authority, do I have to come across as obnoxious? But my point is that once you got clear on that, it's so clear. That's the offer, right? Everything else she teaches, that's the cure. That's the promise. Everything else she teaches about making sure that you're showing up the way that you want people to perceive you, that you're walking the talk. That's all a means to an end. So I think the reason why it's so hard for us to people to tap into that is because once you see the problem, you just want to fix the problem. But you have to kind of back up and talk to people who don't actually know the problem. And you really just have to kind of invite them into the transformation, the cure, the medicine comes later.
I love the way that you position that. And of course, my nerdy brain immediately started thinking about onions, which I know sounds
Okay,
completely
great.
obscure. But
Sure.
I was thinking you were talking about digging deep, and it's layers and layers of language that we kind of pile on. It's from, like you said, curse of knowledge or experience. It's from learning something new, right? We pile on all this language, which makes us feel like we have authority in that space or knowledge in that space that we can turn around and share. But so often when you're trying to relate to somebody, they haven't piled all that on. And so you have to get to the core of it. And yes, I don't know why I went to onions because I'm allergic
It's
to
okay.
them, but I really
Ogres
did.
are like onions. Ogres are like onions, right? They got layers.
Yes,
But
yes. I appreciate a good Shrek reference whenever I can
good.
squeeze that in there.
Love
Uh,
a good parfait. Yeah.
how do you help somebody get to that kind of language though if they're just stepping into the coaching space? Do you feel like this is something that can be done with anybody, or do you feel like somebody needs to really start with one-on-one to kind of figure out their fancy language, for lack of a better way to put it, before they can get to the root transformation?
I do think it does have to come down to real human conversations. One of the things I try to caution people against is don't create an offer for your imaginary friends. Now, marketers call imaginary friends an avatar or a persona or an ICP. They've got all kinds of terms for these imaginary friends. But the reality is, like, that's a trap, like, real quick, because imaginary friends pay you with imaginary money, and those don't pay the bills. So, so it does have to start with real life conversations. You are creating a real solution to a real problem for real people. Now, how do you connect to those people? Sometimes you may have, even outside of coaching, I mean, you may have decades of real life experience with people in your life that are your target client, right? Maybe you worked in a full-time corporate job where you got to meet people in a situation. Maybe you're talking to stay-at-home moms and you're part of a stay-at-home mom group and you know some of them, whatever it is, you need to talk to real humans. But I love to test offers by saying, hey, first go create a one-on-one coaching business. And it's actually one of the questions I ask for incoming potential clients is, hey, have you ever sold your advice before? Like coaching, consulting, other way that you're selling advice? Great. Have you sold at least $10,000 worth of your advice? And if they say no, you're not ready for a group coaching program. And it's actually not because you can't. Like the reality is all the tactics in theory work, but it's really about fueling your empathy by understanding these are the people who have a pain point that's big enough. They're willing to pay a premium to get coaching support, get advice to fix that. And that's a lot. One-on-one coaching is more forgiving because you can charge people different price points. You can have different start dates and times. You can flex the offer as you go. It's more forgiving. It's way less scalable, but it's more forgiving. So I do recommend start with one-on-one coaching. And once you've earned at least $10,000 for one-on-one coaching, you probably have enough knowledge now to start turning that into a group program. And at this point, don't do any one-on-one coaching. I used to do one-on-one coaching just for equity, just like you have to give me equity in your company. But then that kept me up at night with like, now all of a sudden I felt like I was like stressed about everybody else's business decisions. Like when they were if you're a coaching client and you pay me and then you make a bad decision, okay, well, that's on you. But if I own equity in your company now, it feels personal, right? So I gave back all the equity. I stopped doing that. I just do group coaching now. Um, but yeah, I really do think the one-on-one does help. It's a really, really helpful, more forgiving way to start.
Well, that's such great advice too, because it's we tell them that let's go out there and test the waters, right? Let's go out there and really see if your we call it problem solution cycle works. Does it really work in a one-on-one space? And if it does, well, then we can maybe take it to the masses, right? Take it to a one to many approach. But I do love your language there of the one to few versus one to many. That's really good language. Let me ask, as you've watched people transition from one to one to many, what do you think are the top two pitfalls? And we talked a lot about some of these, but what are the top two that you see coaches make mistake wise that causes them not to have success going to the one to many approach?
It's a good question. So I think one of them is what I call the gap. And so by that, I mean, when you're trying to build a one-to-many business, you're trying to scale. It's very natural to do what most online marketers do, which is to create a gap between you and your customer. So the way this works is we don't intentionally go to create a gap. But if you think about the average product you go to buy on the internet, it's like you get an email and then you click a link to go to a page, to watch a video, to maybe go to another page, to maybe fill out a form, to maybe fill out the checkout link, to maybe schedule an onboarding call, right? Like there's like all this, it's this gap between you and the customer. Now we do that because when you're selling a $17 product or a $47 product, I don't want to talk to you, right? Like I can't afford to talk to 1,000 people to try to sell a $17 product. That's bad math. And so what happens is people try to apply the way that you sell an online course or a book. People try to copy and paste that to selling a group coaching program, and it just doesn't work. And the reality is because a $2,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 program per person is not an impulse buy. There's going to be some element of closing the gap. Now, sometimes closing the gap is having a one-on-one, what I call a serve call. That's what Serve to Sell is about, that book, but having a free coaching call. Sometimes it's inviting a group of people onto a Zoom call, a Q&A, where you answer some questions. It's not like a webinar. Webinars create a gap, right? Instead, you try to close the gap everywhere you can. Sometimes that means you're closing the sale over a text message. But your goal is just to look for, hey, where can I close the gap to make this as human and personal as possible so that I can lean in to close the sale? I've had clients with massive audiences. So Sean Block's a real life example of this, where he came to me, he had 35,000 email subscribers. And for the last 9 months, he hadn't been able to make one sale for his $5,000 program. And it was embarrassing and it was upsetting, right? Naturally so. And so I looked at it, I was like, what do you got? He's like, well, I got this really advanced application funnel. It's like an application to a webinar, to a sales page. It's like all the stuff you should have, a theory, right? And I said, okay, step one, delete all of that. It's like, okay. So I was like, we figured out his 10x promise. And then he sent one email to his email list that said, subject line said, quick question. And the email said, would you like to run your full-time business working part-time hours? Sean. Got hundreds of replies. And then I have a multi-step, like, how do you reply to those, right? So the next reply then is, excellent. I'm so glad to hear you're interested. Would you tell me a bit about yourself and your current situation? Out of the hundreds of people that replied, after that second question, about a third didn't reply at all. About a third gave really short answers. And about a third give like their whole life story in like an essay, right? And so then it's, okay, let's invite a handful of those onto either a one-on-one call or a workshop and close them. And so, he added an extra $100,000 to his business in the first few months that he was doing this. And after nothing, right? Like, his audience didn't change. What changed was he closed the gap. And so that's really what I look for. And it works too at smaller scale, I should say. He's got a huge audience, but my most successful client to date, Dustin Riekman, he now does over $1 million a year in revenue just from his combination of his group coaching and his mastermind program. When he started this, he had a couple hundred email subscribers. His first year that he crossed $500,000 in revenue, he had 550 email subscribers. The next year, he broke $1 million in revenue, and he had, I think it was about 700 email subscribers. Now he's up to 2,000 email subscribers. It's still, like, in the bigger scheme of things, it's not a huge amount, but now he's doing over $1 million a year in revenue because it's about closing the gap and going deep with a few. So that's what I would recommend, is to close the gap.
That's good. That's really good. Jess? She's deep. Oh, I love this look.
You got my wheels.
Exactly what she's doing. She's so deep in thought right now. This is so good.
All the gears are turning.
So good. You know me, I'm also dying to get my hands on the book.
Yes.
Because I don't read, John. I don't know if you knew this or not, but I might have
just collect the books?
problem. No.
Okay, yeah.
He reads so fast and so many. It's like, all right, well, let me put my 4 books up here on the counter so she can at least somewhat compete. Yeah. No, she's so good. We can't wait to see this playbook and read it. When, where, how do we get it? What's next?
Yes. Okay. So I'm glad you asked. That's a good question. So Jess and I were actually talking about this, and we schemed to put together a special link just for I Love Coaching folks. And so if you go to soldout.coach/love, right, then not only do you get a discounted way to pre-order the book and get early access to it, right? So you actually get access to it before it's publicly available, because Jess is beating down my door asking for a copy. But secondly, on top of that, I will immediately send you access to a crash course I have that really teaches the core concepts of our 7-step playbook. And the goal here is really to help you fund your lifestyle by group coaching 1 day a week. I mean, what could you do if you could know that you were funding your lifestyle by group coaching 1 day a week? Would you go like Dustin and go all in on coaching and build $1 million business just doing that? Would you publish a book or a course and do something else? I've got one of my clients where she's like, hey, if I can run 2 cohorts a year, then she makes 6 figures off of that. She's like, I run 2 cohorts a year, make 6 figures a year. Amazing. As she spends the rest of her time volunteering for a nonprofit. And she's like, that's my kind of rich. I'm like, that's amazing. Right. And so it's like, that's what I want for you, is I want you to be able to do this, not only because of the revenue impact for you, but also because you're going to get to work closely with a handful of people to really, dare I say, disciple them through dramatic change in their life. And it's a huge honor, and it's way more impact than you're going to get in their life than just having courses or even one-on-one coaching. Because I will say, a lot of times people underestimate how much, once you go from one-on-one to a group, usually people underestimate the impact of positive peer pressure. Because if you're on a one-on-one coaching call and I tell you to go do something and you're like, yeah, maybe I will, maybe I won't, that's fine. But if you're in a group and I tell you to do something, you got to come back and with a straight face be like, no, I didn't do it. to the whole group, right? And that positive peer pressure, that's precious. So soldout.coach/love.
I cannot wait. Just let's go do it right now.
Well, I'm ready. I know, John, you have squeezed us into your busy schedule. So I
Thank
just
you.
want to take one more moment to say thank you so much for coming to share a little bit about who you are and what you're doing and how you're serving in this same space of coaching. What an incredible opportunity. And we'll make sure that, our listeners have that link if they're maybe driving or something like that in the show notes.
That's right.
So
Thank you.
thank you again.
And
It's my pleasure. Thank you both.
it's always so fun to have same worlds come into a same conversation in the space of serving, right? It is helping these people that desire in our lane of coaching to go have success and significance. And I have no doubt your book, your playbook, this sold out process is going to not only teach them how to have success, but also significance with their clients. So thank you.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I think I could think I speak for all three of us when I say I love sold out coaching. So please keep up the good work.
Perfect. We will. Thank you, John. Appreciate your time. See you guys. Bye.